Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming this morning. My name is Josh Atwood. I'm the Invasive Species Coordinator for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And I just wanted to welcome you to the first ever Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week, which is fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much to everybody for coming. The national version of this week has been going on this would have been their fourth year if, unfortunately, a lot of their activities have been canceled due to the impending sequestration. But this is the first year for Hawaii's Invasive Species Awareness Week, which I think is really fantastic and shows Hawaii's commitment to joining the nation and recognizing invasive species as a problem, especially in our state where we have so many unique resources and so many great ecosystems that need protecting, and such a prevalent issue with invasive species due to our importation of goods and our economy based on tourism. You know, we really want to protect those natural resources. So the downside of our sequestration event is, of course, the impending financial situation in Washington, but the upside of it is that we're able to have our HISC co-chairs here today, William Isla from the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and Russell Kokobun from the Department of Agriculture, and also our communications coordinator, Jackie Kozak-Teal, working for the Invasive Species Council. So they were all able to come back today, which we really appreciate. I just wanted to mention how Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week came about. This was actually an initiative from Russell Kokobun as the HISC co-chair. And it's really, it really speaks to the initiative of the Abercrombie administration, how engaged our Invasive Species Council members have been. And if you're not familiar with the Invasive Species Council, it's a 6-department interagency collaboration between the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Agriculture, Transportation, Health, Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, and the University of Hawaii. So for the direction to come from a council member is really fantastic, and I'm really glad to see how many events we've been able to coordinate across the state with some of our partners for volunteer opportunities this week, and how many people have come today for the Invasive Species Council's awards and also the Governor's Proclamation of Invasive Species Awareness Week. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir when I say this, but of course invasives are a particular problem in Hawaii where we're an island state and we have so many wonderful endemic species that weren't evolved to deal with a lot of our the mainland competitors that are brought here that can become invasive species. But it just creates more opportunities for us as a conservation community to come together and try to deal with some of the impacts that invasive species have on not only our environments, but our economy and our way of life. There's such a great commitment in Hawaii to join in with the conservation community to deal with some of these issues because people recognize that Hawaii is important. Our native species, our way of life here, and the native Hawaiian culture are something that we as a community really value, and it's great to see everybody kind of pull together to work to minimize the impacts of invasive species. On the state side, what we're doing for invasive species, as I mentioned, there's that 6-agency Invasive Species Council that we're here to talk about today. And we also have a lot of departmental initiatives represented. Along the side here, we have some displays from the Division of Aquatic Resources at the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We have some flyers and info from the Watershed Initiative at Department of Land and Natural Resources. The State Department of Defense has brought some information on what they do to minimize invasive species on military lands. And we also have a display from the Department of Agriculture Plant Pest Control Branch, who's actually brought some live species, the biocontrol moth that's been released in the past couple of weeks to control invasive fireweeds. So please feel free to check out the displays when you get a chance. If you're interested in the other events we have for Invasive Species Awareness Week, please check out our website. It's HISAW, which is HISAW 2013.blogspot.com. We have about 15 statewide events for volunteering if you want to get out there in the field and control invasive species. And we also have a statewide BioBlitz where anybody can take a smartphone or just a camera and a computer, go outside, take a picture of what's in your yard or what's on your favorite hiking trail, upload it, and we have scientists across the state who have volunteered to identify those species that you find. There's even a real-time chat function, so you can connect with someone at Bishop Museum or Department of Agriculture and find out what's around you. So just to go over the schedule for today, We have the Governor's Proclamation after a welcome from some of our Invasive Species Council members. And then we'll move into the Hawaii Invasive Species Council's awards, of which there are 8. If you have an agenda from our outside table, you'll see how many awards we're giving away today and the breadth of really incredible individuals and organizations that we're going to recognize. We also have, in addition to the HISC awards themselves, we have Senate recognition certificates from Senator Nishihara's office. This is sort of a last-minute thing that he actually took the initiative to call me up on his own and say, you know, I'm really glad you guys are doing these awards, so my office would like to write these up. So while some of our awards will be presented by members of the House of Representatives today, we do have Senate recognition certificates for them, which is not so much a political statement, just a really nice thing that Senator Nishihara's office did for us and shows his commitment for invasive species work. As far as the agenda today, I just want to mention that if things get a little mixed up, it's largely in part to it being caucus day here at the legislature. So we have our legislators on the agenda to come in and give the awards. We have a great agenda set up, and I don't expect us to keep on it at all. So we will do our best, but with legislators coming in and out, we'll just sort of see how the morning goes, and thank you for your patience. With that, I just wanted to say mahalo to the governor for being here today to give the proclamation, to our wonderful Invasive Species Council members who have just been fantastic with driving the state initiative to deal with invasive species, and also to our award winners. I want to thank them for their inspiring work. I'm so glad that we can recognize them here today. I want to thank Whole Foods for donating lunches for our award winners. We're going to be getting together at TNC afterwards for lunch for the award winners, and TNC also donated the lei, so thank you very much for that. And thank you so much to our partner agencies who helped put together Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week, including Department of Ag and DLNR, the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species, all of the county-based invasive species committees, the Hawaii Conservation Alliance, Hawaii Biodiversity Information Network, and the Nature Conservancy. With that, I'd like to introduce 2 of our Hawaii Invasive Species Council members. They are Dean Maria Gallo from the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, and Gary Gill, who's the Deputy Director for Department of Health.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a new member on HISC, but CTAR has been an active participant over the years. We are perfectly positioned to serve in the role of offering support through research and development and technical expertise to other HISC member agencies and partners, as well as workforce training through extension. For example, one of our entomologists based in Hilo, Dr. Arnold Hara, received honorable mention in the above and beyond category for his tireless work in integrated pest management. He has collaborated with HISC member agencies and funded projects in the past to address major pests like coqui frogs and worked on over a dozen pests in 2012 alone. One of our Manoa professors in the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management, Dr. Chris Lepchuk, is the chair of HISC's Research and Technology Working Group. Since the HISC budget fell from $4 million to $1.2 million in 2009, there unfortunately has not been funding for the research grants program through this group. We hope this funding will be restored because we need research and development in order to meet the continuing challenges as new invasive species are introduced into Hawaii and existing ones continue to spread. Even though we are currently lacking in funds, the HISC and R&T Working Group will still help to identify priority research projects and questions by facilitating conversations with the management community, those people that are on the ground and in the water, to offer opportunities for our students and to contribute to our local needs. UHERO has also helped by conducting economic analysis of invasive species impacts. For example, they found that if the brown tree snake were to establish in Hawaii, the cost would total an estimated $2.14 billion in tourism loss, power outages, and medical treatment. Another UHERO study found that without management of Myconia on Oahu alone, damages to native ecosystems and water resources would total $627 million over the next 40 years. The Oahu Invasive Species Committee, who have prevented the spread of Myconia through only on-ground field work and aerial surveys has an annual budget of less than $1 million and would only need about 1.2 for full capacity. Lastly, for 39 years, the Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit under the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii has worked to protect cultural and natural biodiversity in the Pacific while encouraging a sustainable economy. Dr. David Duffy serves as principal investigator for many of HISC's funded projects, including the County-Based Invasive Species Committee, the Hawaii Ant Lab, the Aquatic Invasive Species Team, and the Weed Risk Assessment. PCSU's support has been critical to on-the-ground field work. Invasive species is a priority area for CTAR, and we will continue to be deeply involved in HISC. And right now, I'll turn it over to fellow council member, Deputy Director Gary Gill, and have a happy Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week. Aloha.
Oh, don't worry, I'll bring that back later. Hello, everybody. I'm Gary Gill. It's a real pleasure to be amongst all you invasive species out there. You know, we need to recognize some of the information that you all know that I kind of was lucky to grow up with, which is, you know, just the understanding that species came to Hawaii naturally by wind, by wing, or by wave, maybe, you know, once every million years or so, until the big invasive species invasion by humans, which have dramatically transformed these islands. For someone like me who had the good fortune of growing up in the mountains and hiking around as a kid and being given information by my elders, my life has been filled with watching Clydemia spread through the ko'olaus, or finding a Myconia plant in the Aihualama headwaters in the back of Manoa, watching rose apple spread and wither and die because of a fungus that did away with it in the back of Kalihi Valley. These are things that I am lucky to be aware of, but so many people are not. So many people are bound to their existence in an urban environment and don't have the connection to those natural resources that are so dear to us in Hawaii. And that's why it's so important that we have this Invasive Species Council. The legislature did a brilliant thing by creating this multi-agency task force. And the governor did a brilliant thing by appointing so many great advocates to sit on it. The council, I think, with this new administration, I think I can say our first meeting was sort of a watershed moment of the new administration, because I think many of you in the room who were there, or advocates who've been working on this task for so long, weren't quite prepared for the energy and commitment that this administration has brought to this concern. I think I may have been put in the minutes by saying the only good axis deer is a dead axis deer, but if that's an indication of the kind of sea change that the council has brought, it's only a reflection of the good work that you folks have done in this room for many, many years. I represent the Department of Health on the HISC, and maybe that's kind of a misnomer for those of you who deal in the agricultural concerns or the watersheds and the conservation area concerns, but really the Department of Health is an old hand at this issue. The Department of Health is the oldest institution remaining in the state, and we've been involved since the 1830s under the kingdom in trying to prevent the introduction of alien species, those specifically that bring disease to the population. And so we have a piece of this, an important piece, to protect public health as well. And so as well, we see a sea change in the administration's activities as under our governor's initiative, we're trying to restore a good measure of our vector control function so that at points of entry, we will be able to detect and eradicate invasive mosquitoes or rats or anything that could be bringing disease to our public. But the HISC has been really active, and it's been really fun. You know, we had our meeting on the neighbor islands for the first time, went off to Maui. My notes, you know, say it was all about axis deer and things like that, but really it was about shooting paintballs, right? I mean, it was about, ballistic delivery of pesticide to fight myconia in the watersheds. That's what it was about. But I think you got a whole bunch of new volunteers to go up in helicopters and blast myconia because fighting alien species can be fun, right? And that's important to know every time you cut down a strawberry guava tree or pull out a myconia plant. It's really fun to know that you're making a difference to preserve the environment. Working together between the administration agencies, it's really important to break through the stovepipes, to pull the resources together between our agencies. And so at points of entry, we hope to have a better collaboration between the Department of Transportation, the Department of Agriculture, the Health Department, and DLNR, so that we can identify and stop these species at the point of entry. Each of our agencies have a different role to play, but we only play it well when we play it together. And so that's what the HISC is really about. And as an indication of that, it just came up in our last HISC meeting that I think the Department of Agriculture is looking for maybe a new building or a new facility for their lab to do invasive species work. And I leaned over to Russell. I said, dude, I got a big lab. Come check it out. You know, maybe we can work together on it. And we had a tour, and his folks came up, and we looked around, and there may be a way that we can work together with his department and my department in an existing facility to get the work done most efficiently. And, you know, that's the kind of thing, those opportunities that we see in the HISC to bring our resources together and use them effectively. So, you know, we can't stop. We need to keep this going. And one of our big challenges, I think, is communicating out to the public as to why this is important. Everyone in this room recognizes how important it is and have been putting a significant part of our lives into that issue. And I like to think that for those out there in the community who don't understand it, who haven't gotten the memo yet, they're not true believers, you know, we need to understand that this alien species, invasive species issue confronts everyone, and everyone out there is either just one dengue fever case or one fire ant bite or one crop failure away from being converted to a true believer in this cause. And it's important that we continue that message, to continue the initiative and the resources that this administration has put to the alien species and invasive species concerns. And it's all because of the gentleman I'm going to introduce now, the leader of our team and a man who I know got the memo and has been pushing us forward on this issue. Please welcome the Governor, Neil Abercrombie.
Thank you very much, Gary. Aloha, everybody. Aloha. I was a little dumbstruck by Gary's introduction. He's usually not that nice to me when... I'm really delighted to be here with you. You folks are the shock troops for what we need to accomplish if we are to in turn accomplish what is required of us. I have this proclamation here today that I'm going to give to Russell and William symbolically on behalf of all of you and behalf of all the people in the state who are already working on invasive species or will be as a result of the work that's being done by the folks in this room. And on that proclamation, I see it all the time. It informs my day every time that I see it. I started out being governor, understanding that on occasion, perhaps more occasions than I really cared to face, that I would be giving out proclamations or commendations or one thing and another, And I started out thinking a little bit, well, this is something you have to do. It's part of the job. And very quickly, I began to realize that I completely underestimated what this was all about. I'd taken a kind of prosaic attitude toward it, toward the idea of it, towards the concept. And what I realized very, very quickly, every time I looked at Lumau Ke'ia Oka Aina Ika Pono, and it began to, and every time I would give a proclamation, especially if I was upstairs in the ceremonial room, it's right there on the medallion that represents the state. And I would be hit with it all the time thinking, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what we're all supposed to do. And it's not just words, it's an admonition. And we take an oath to follow that concept and that precept. Now, I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here. I understand that. And I understand as well that what I'm speaking of right at this moment is obvious to everybody in this room. But I've learned politically that it's the obvious you have to state over and over again, and because it's a thing that people take most for granted and forget first. It's like sugary drinks. You know, you got to wise up sooner or later as to what that means and how it's working. And so I wanted to be here very much today for this to issue this proclamation because the synthesis of effort that Dr. Gallo and Gary were kind enough to mention is crucial if we are to preserve the land. Now, the English word that's generally associated with Pono is righteousness. I've always thought that was a little bit unfortunate. It's probably a little too biblical in the sense of moral instruction. On the other hand, the word Pono itself is in fact moral instruction, to do the correct thing, to do the right thing. The difficulty for the two-legged invasive species that Gary referenced, ourselves, is we have to make judgments then, all the time, as to what the right thing to do is, what the correct thing to do is. Luckily, I know that instinctively and have never made a mistake to this point, but so someday I might, and I hope then I can take corrective action at that point. Part of the reason I've never made a mistake here, of course, is because of many of the people who are going to be getting the awards later today. Because everyone in this room is constantly making judgments, trying to decide what can I do in my capacity, whether it's volunteer, whether it's professional, whether it's on the governmental side, whether it's on the nonprofit side. What can I do to see to it that I'm making a positive contribution with respect to this issue, which is pervasive. The invasive species issues, as both the previous speakers indicated, are pervasive in our society. And we have to pick and choose there. There are some invasive species, well, I think it was Dr. Gallo pointed out, or Gary pointed out, both of them I suspect, that after all, everything came here from someplace else. The only thing that's here of itself is the volcanic eruptions and the residue of millions of years of history from inner space on our planet. So everything has come here. We have to make judgments then as to what categories of existence we will come to terms with. All the flowers, some are, we say indigenous and some not. Even that very phrase itself I've come to learn, and in the studying I've tried to do, particularly since the administration started, was trying to figure out what's indigenous. There's arguments about that as to what is indigenous. However, we do have a pretty good grasp on those species that are crowding others out or take over the environment in a deleterious way to keeping the land Pono. And that's what we have to work on. I got a real lesson in working together. I think Gary said something about the stovepipe or the silo effect and trying to work across lines. And that's, again, why these awards are so important and why this proclamation is so important to me. It's a recognition that the people in this room and your colleagues and associates, those volunteers and others who have combined with you to have you here today as their representatives, understand what it is what goals and what path is before us. Understand it very, very well. We find ourselves now on the cusp of whether or not we're actually going to make it into something where we're winning. We've been on defense. How many here, don't you hate this thing? Would you raise your hands, all those who have sinned. Okay, we can get that one up there. But we've been playing defense. I don't know how you feel about it. I always feel it's defensive, or you're always coming at it from the point of view of, oh God, that's what this problem is today, and there's 6 other things. Oh, the fire ants. Oh yeah, we got to go deal with the fire ants. And then you start focusing on the fire ants and you forget about the Myconia or something. Not that you forget it, it's just that after a while you start thinking, it's so big, how are we going to deal with this? It's almost too much. But I think the opposite now. I think that, yes, we had to get our finances in order over the last 2 years. That hasn't been easy. Some people are wrongly upset with me because of the way we've had to do it. But I think we're able to turn that corner now. I want to thank Dr. Gallo for giving me my budget instructions. Thank you very much as to what needs to, in terms of personnel and dollars, that need to be addressed. And they do. We know what to do. And I think we're in a position with what you folks have accomplished in an organized way, that we can come to the legislature, we can come to the public at large with a dedicated, integrated, comprehensible game plan and a timeline. That's what people want to have. It's not so much that they distrust government, or it's not so much that they feel so overwhelmed that they either lose hope or feel that it's beyond them and nothing can be accomplished. It's not that. It's that people want to have the certain idea that there are some people in charge, and they know what they're doing, they know where they're going, they know how they're going to get it done, they know what it's going to cost. They've said what that is. They've given us a rationale for it. That's the stage we're at. That's what these awards are about today. That's what this proclamation is about. I think we're on the cusp, the political cusp, and that's what counts. The political cusp of actually being able to accomplish the very things that everyone in this room has dedicated sometimes decades of their life to. Now, this opportunity might not come again. The first thing, I thought I saw Emma Yoon somewhere. Is Emma here? Oh, Emma, there you are. I got I almost said I got an eyeful, Emma, right after I saw you. That's not what I meant. I'm talking about the natural area reserves. The natural area reserve system with Emma and her colleagues, for example, on the Big Island. And by the way, just parenthetically, I want to say today, the best magazine in the entire world, I think, certainly the best airline magazine ever, is Hanaho Magazine on Hawaiian Airlines. It's just absolutely the best thing there is. And there's a big story on Emma and the Natural Area Reserve System. There's a story on invasive species and what it means in there. It's graphic. In fact, what I asked my staff to do, I think I already didn't I, Louise, is to get a copy of this bi-monthly Hanaho magazine and send it to every legislator, send it to the Chamber of Commerce, send it to the building trades, pointing out the story in the Natural Area Reserve and say, this is what it's all about. This is how it has to work. This is why we want the watershed initiative. Everybody here, you represent various organizations and individuals and groups. Go back to the legislature now. We have to have the watershed initiative go through. This is for everybody. This is putting some money behind what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, and we can do it. We've got the game plan. Everybody here has put together their best efforts and their knowledge over the years to see to it that we have a game plan that's intra-departmental, that does reach out to the public, that is an integrated, as I said, and comprehensive plan. I'm going on at a little bit of length here because I don't always get the chance to have this many people get together at one time in the room, all of whom have this focus and this determination. And so I want you to know that there's nothing this administration will not do by way of support and consistency of support in order to accomplish this goal. There is so much that will follow if we succeed with a comprehensive and long-term investment in invasive species control and elimination. It has implications for the hospitality industry. It has implications for real estate and housing. It has implications for farming. It has implications for sustainability of water. Everything that determines how Pono the Aina is starts with invasive species. If we can get that within our sights and under control, everything else will follow. I believe that. And I hope that, in fact, I'm certain everybody else here believes it too. So I'm delighted to kick off this Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week. I'm pleased that some of the media folks are here to do it. I was worried that maybe this wouldn't be spectacular enough to get visual. And when I say media, particularly television media or social media, because it's so important to be able to show. And so if you get asked by some of these folks today, well, can you give us a graphic example or examples of what we're talking about so our viewers can understand it? By all means, take advantage of it. And so we can get across to the people of the state that we know where we're going, we know what we're doing, we know why we're doing it, we know how we're going to do it, and if we all do it together, we'll succeed. So the council was created 10 years ago by the legislature, and this week is not just a celebration, but rather an opportunity for us to take all of the work that's been done to this point, focus it to public attention, and then to carry through with the rest of the legislative session for the kind of support that's going to be necessary. So at this juncture, then, I would like very much to ask Russell and William to come up. Who, by the way, aren't these guys doing a terrific job? They really are. Despite everything that you've heard to the contrary, you guys. I won't go through all of the whereases. Suffice to say that this is a proclamation presented in recognition of Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week. And the indication here is that there is direction, coordination, and planning among State Department agencies, federal agencies, international and local initiatives for the control and eradication of harmful invasive species infestations throughout the state. That's the key. Direction, coordination, and planning. Now we have to get to the action part of it. The council has prioritized invasive species outreach efforts. Yes, we need to increase the awareness, and then we need to increase the funding to support that awareness. We know what the unique threats are of invasive species in Hawaii throughout our island state. We know about the number of rare and endemic native species that need protection and support. And I know that the Invasive Species Council knows in turn that a key priority of this administration is to improve the prevention, management, and response systems. So we have direction, coordination, and planning, and then that's going to be followed by prevention, management, and response. That is the key to it all. Therefore, I, as governor, do hereby proclaim March 4th through 8th, 2013 as Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week, and ask all the people of our Aloha State to join us in recognizing the importance of preventing and controlling harmful invasive species in order to protect our natural resources, our economy, and yes, our way of life. Thank you. We will now take holy pictures.
One, two, three. One more time. One, two, three.
Could we ask the other members of the council to come up to?
Sure.
Gary and Maria. And David Rodriguez, if I'm in front, if they want to come on up. Go.
Come on.
And D-Bed.
Yes.
Mary Alice.
Council.
Step forward.
Yeah, come.
Don't get on the end.
Yeah, Maria.
This looks bad enough as it is.
More time. One, two, three.
Can I just say, just one more word? I certainly don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by not naming everybody and so on, but I mentioned before how many years this has been going on. And some of you folks I don't know as well as I would like to, but I also know that there's folks out there that have been working very, very hard for a long, long time. And I just want to say, I mentioned the great work that Emma and her folks did to enlighten me and give me a crystal clear idea of what the Natural Area Reserve System can do. That's the kind of thing, again, that I hope the broader public gets to learn about, because once they do, they're going to be very, very proud of what the folks in public service are doing. But also, I want to tell you, I cannot tell you how happy I am that Jackie Kozak-Thiel is still with us. And Jackie, where are you? There she is in the back. She helped us get our garden started, and more than that, she gave me and my wife an opportunity to realize once again what terrific talent and dedication, focus, not just an individual can have, but in terms of a commitment to Hawaii that is an inspiration to me. And I see my friend Mary Berger here from the Big Island. We were neighbors in Manoa Valley. She's on the Big Island now. I see friends from so many decades. There are actually folks here who remember when I ran my first campaign in 1974 for the legislature and based it on conservation of water and watershed lands, and people didn't know what I was talking about. They thought I was crazy. Why would you possibly be running a state legislative race on the basis that we all ought to be concerned about water? And I remember my friend saying to me, "I saw you on TV tonight. Terrific. You got on TV. That's wonderful. Wow, people, actually know you're running a campaign." And I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "Yeah, they're interviewing me." And so he says, "Yeah." He said, "It was trivia." I said, "Well, do you remember what it was about?" He says, yeah, it was water. It was water. And I said, "Okay, but what did they say? I mean, what did I say about water? We're in trouble, right?" And believe me, in terms of awareness, that's good. That's great. They got it. It's water, and we're in trouble, and you're the one to fix it. So, and Tim, I see the Cattlemen's Association, and Mary's with the Realtors and so on. We do not want to find ourselves falling into categories where we think people won't be with us. That's not the case. People in business understand that winning the war against an invasive species is in everybody's interests. It's in business interests. It's in environmental interests. It's a values triumph for us in Hawaii. So there's a whole bunch of other people here too. Please don't be upset. The zoo folks are here. I love the zoo. I worked on it when I was on the city council because I think that creates awareness that would otherwise be lost. And we need to work with the city, see what we can do to help out there to make that happen. So again, I'm pleased, Dr. Gallo, that you're really taking charge over at Ag Department, and that you have such an eclectic vision as to what can be done. So forgive, I've already taken much too much time here, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this is personal with me, and my relationship to this is going to be complete and total and committed. If there's one thing about me, everybody's virtue is their vice, and I'm a shining example in many categories, but let me tell you something. I'm with you folks. I'm with everybody on invasive species, and if there's one thing about me, I'm relentless, and I'm with you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Russell.
Okay, thanks, Norman. Appreciate it. Aloha kako. Gary, I'm Russell Kokelman. I'm with the Department of Agriculture. And when Gary was up, he mentioned the very first meeting of this administration of the Hawaii Invasive Species Council. And many of you were there, and you'll recall that the governor actually opened up with an address to all of us, basically charging us exactly like he just did now with the responsibility to move the HISC to a much higher level. And we've done that, I think, and we've done it in a very enjoyable way. I think we've all had kind of fun doing this thing, but it's really important for us to recognize all of you and the good work that you all are doing out in the community now. William and I were supposed to be in D.C. today, we were invited to participate in the National Invasive Species Awareness Week by a group called the National Invasive Species Council. So, the HISC is really kind of modeled after that the NISC, and it's cabinet level, again, at the administration level. But, it really depends on the passion and the drive of the leadership and the people that they asked to participate in this. And I think I couldn't ask for better partners than those of us that were up here with the governor this morning. And I also want to just say that Josh Atwood, who kind of opened for us, and the governor also mentioned Jackie Kozak-Teal, these are the folks that actually make it really happen. And yeah, I really take my hat off and thank you very, very much for all that you do. Kind of like Gary, growing up here in Hawaii, it makes you very aware of what's happening within our state and with the environment in our state. And so when I participated in meetings at the national level with all my counterparts from the other 49 states, it's called the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, I was really floored when invasive species came up, and it's a major focus for different states, all the states, in different ways. But it brought home the message to me that we cannot let down our guard, that we need to constantly be aware of what's going on. And the really interesting thing to me was that from a national perspective, they were all very aware of what was happening in Hawaii. They all recognized that Hawaii was kind of a gateway, and that they needed to, this was like the first line of defense for many of the invasives coming into the U.S. So that was very much a mind-opening opportunity for me. So when we had this opportunity, William and I, to go up to the National Invasive Species Awareness Week and participate, they wanted to hear from an island perspective on what invasives were like. We jumped at it. Unfortunately, we're here, but I'm happy to be here with all of you. I think the important thing to keep in mind, though, is that, as the governor stated, this issue, these problems are not going to go away. And for the agricultural industry, these present some very, very major economic impact factors that we have to keep in mind. And I'm so pleased that we are able to address many of those invasives that affect the agricultural industry. We have a very steep hill to climb, but we have much more to do. And one of the, I think, bright spots for us recently has been this whole use of biocontrol. And when Gary was alluding to the labs that they have up in Pearl City, Mauka, that was the issue. Our biocontrol laboratory is very restricted. We can do so much more if we had the available space and the amount of security that's necessary to do experiments with biocontrol. And I think there's going to be a good opportunity for us up in Pearl City to expand our ability to practice this more regularly. We've just recently released the Secuzio moth to deal with fireweed, and this has had a major impact on the expansion of our cattle industry. So I'm glad that that's been done, and that we're recognizing some of the Hawaii Cattlemen Council folks that helped put all of that together. There's so much more to do, and we're here, and we want to continue, want to join with you in that effort, and I think given the governor's support, we're gonna really move forward on a lot of these initiatives. So let me just say that it's really been fun getting to know William. I really consider him a good friend, colleague on the cabinet level, but more than anything, just a really, really good brother. So I'm happy to introduce him now.
And Russell usually follows that up with, no pressure, bro. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit older, so I need these things to read. But before I read, I just want to thank the governor, because it was the governor bringing us all together, giving us this mandate to work beyond silos. He said that from day one. He said that on day 2. He said that on day 3. He says that every time we get together, that in order for us to move forward, we do need to work beyond the business models, the government models of the past, that it's going to take creativity, and this room is nothing new. Creativity is nothing new to this room, because this is the room that has been doing, everyone in this room has been doing more with less from day one. Everyone in this room has been doing pinching pennies and creative ways of making things pono, for lack of a better word. I am truly inspired by all the other council members every time that we get together and meet. And I just, I'm the new kid on the block, so I enjoy the soft hand that helps guide me through some of the rough spots, because I'm not the most patient person in the world. And Gary and and Russell, I mean, you guys have inspired me to do more work within my capacity. But more so than you folks, it's the people in this room that have inspired me to really get staff and listen, right? It's about listening. It's about listening to the people who are on the ground, who are pulling the weeds, who are shooting the paintballs, as much as we did enjoy that on Maui. I thought that was rather innovative. And we actually thought about, well, if we can apply herbicide, why can't we apply native seeds? So I think we're going to start challenging the folks to take that technology and use it in further creative ways to put seeds, the appropriate seeds on the cliff faces of the most eroded mountains that we have here in Hawaii. Invasive species, you are the choir. We all know what the impacts are. We all know what the consequences are if we don't pull together and educate the people who hold the purse strings, if we don't pull together and inspire the folks who are at the airports who are looking for invasives coming in. It's also inspiring bureaucrats like myself to go to the federal government and with Russell go, some of the policies that the federal government has is actually detrimental to Hawaii, where we can't impose stricter importation regulations because there's a federal nexus that overrides it. And we're a nice protective gateway to the United States, but it has to be a reciprocal relationship. The field crews at our different DOFAR branches and our partners, such as the Watershed Partnerships and Invasive Species Committee, are the boots on the ground. You folks, many of you who are going to receive awards today, are the boots on the ground. I'm going to personally thank you right now on behalf of my ancestors to your ancestors, on behalf of my descendants to your descendants, for the hard work that you are doing today and for the hard work that you will do tomorrow. Excuse me. Both here in this square building in terms of raising awareness and in terms of getting legislators, and the reason I bring this up right now because we have a very important legislator who gets it, getting them to act and provide us with the changes in regulations to provide us with the funding that's necessary to move forward. I just want to point out that for us, and the governor mentioned this, we encourage the legislature to support invasive species control through the conveyance tax, that's Senate Bill 1166. It would provide a dedicated source of funding for the Hawaii Invasive Species Council for the first time. That's part of the governor's commitment. We're not afraid to try things new. And it would increase conservation funding for invasive species and water protection through that Rain Follows the Forest initiative, accomplishing several things at one time. The bag fee, which this fine senator supports and actually introduced his own bill. House Bill 357 would provide funds to mitigate the negative effects of plastic bag reduction by providing funding for watershed protection and invasive species control. So we are hearing what you have to say. We are responding to what you have to say by the introduction of really innovative products moving forward to create a source of dedicated funding. Russell and I and the other directors, we think about this every day. We think about this every night sometimes. I have to tell you, I do wake up thinking about Myconia. I do wake up thinking about strawberry guava. I do think about, gee, if we just had a little bit more funding, we could have accomplished a little bit more. And that's what drives us every day. Japanese marine debris, I can tell you for the first hand that flipping over that little boat that came from Japan and seeing the green mussels on the inside of this boat. First time that these species have been recorded in Hawaii. The alarms went off. And so quickly we gathered all of the green mussels that we could find. We inspected the area nearby to make sure that we didn't miss any. But here's an issue where because of global events, we now have to be extra careful. We have ships coming to Hawaii on a daily basis, and we are just beginning to understand and just beginning to put the data gathering in place to understand the impacts of hull fouling, the impacts of ballast water, and that's going to be the new horizon, the additional horizon. Knowing all of this, though, we do have innovative ways of dealing with other issues. We all know that through some good efforts many years ago, people brought alien algae to Hawaii thinking that we could create an industry. And some of those alien algae got out and created an environmental catastrophe, if you will, in Kaneohe Bay. Because we have innovative people and because we have dedicated people, we have now a sea urchin rearing capability at the Anuenue fisheries at DLNR. And we know that this works. So now it's a matter of increasing the capacity to grow sea urchins, and the reality is right now that we're just beginning to crack that scientific nut. We can do it on a small scale basis. We're ratcheting up the ability to do so, and if we could quadruple production, we would, because here is an example of where innovation, good minds, a little bit of funding has gone a long way. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Josh. And before that, I want everyone to give them, in this room, to give themselves a big hand, because it is because of you that the future looks brighter, okay? Okay.
Mahalo again to the governor and our great council members for their kind words and their dedication. If you didn't catch that, I just want to reiterate that Chair Isla said that he personally goes out and finds some of these stranded vessels to inspect them for tsunami debris that might have invasive species on it. And though I don't know if he wants me to share this, he's been known to sometimes answer the hotline for when people call in for marine debris. So just incredible dedication from our cabinet members, so thank you very much. I'd like to close the governor's proclamation portion of our schedule this morning and start the HISC award portion of the agenda. To give our first award this morning, we have Senator Mike Gabbard here to present the Above and Beyond Award. Senator Gabbard, if you're not familiar with him, is just a fantastic friend to the conservation community. Last year, he put together a recognition ceremony for the invasive species committees and also Mohsen Ramadan from the Department of Agriculture to thank them for their excellent work. So it's always a pleasure to interact with Senator Gabbard, and we thank him for being here today. Senator?
Aloha kako. You know, Director Isla, flattery will get you nowhere. I can only stay a few minutes. We're actually just next door. We're having a majority caucus. Welcome, Senator Solomon. And we are going over 76 pages of bills that we are deliberating on that we will vote on tomorrow. And so I just wanted to stop by and also appreciate again, as I said at our informational briefing that we had back in January, how much I appreciate all the work that you do. As I am in my 5th year as the chair of the Energy and Environment Committee, while I am very focused on getting us off of our addiction of on foreign oil, on fossil fuels, because we do spend $4 to $6 billion every year importing over 40 million barrels of oil, which doesn't make any sense since we have all these clean renewable resources built into our island paradise here. I do want to make sure that you understand that I have not neglected the environment part of my title as the chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. So, you know, Bill is talking about, or what he dreams about. At that informational briefing back in January, I was introduced for the first time to a ball python, a tarantula, coqui frogs, a bearded dragon, blue rat snake, a blue-tongue skink, and my favorite, and this is the one that I have dreams about, is the Madagascar hissing cockroach. I'm serious now. I mean, we have cockroaches in our house, and these guys this big, and they hiss when you hassle them. Imagine a hissing cockroach. Anyway, so I kind of got excited about doing more to help you folks. Invasive species, they have enormous impact on our health, our economy, our environment, and indeed our way of life. We know that. For example, it's estimated that the brown tree snake, if it becomes established here in Hawaii, it could cost us $593 to $2 billion a year, including the loss of our native bird population. And so I wanted to actually, let me mention the red fire ants. That would cost us $200 million annually in ag losses and health costs. So invasive species, they affect all of us, and it's up to all of us to do our part. First of all, we need to take personal responsibility for keeping non-native species out of Hawaii. Don't bring in anything that doesn't belong here, and report any invasive species that you encounter. And secondly, government, that's us guys, we need to step up our efforts to inspect shipments and stop illegal species at the point of entry. And next, we must eradicate or at least control invasive species that get past inspection. And as the director was saying, it requires sufficient resources, and that takes funding. So I ask everyone to make the call, send the email to your legislator as we move into the voting modes here on these particular bills. Also, as Director Isla mentioned, my colleagues, we are voting to pass SB 1166 tomorrow, which increases the conveyance tax and directs an additional 10% of conveyance tax proceeds to the Natural Area Reserve Fund for watershed protection and also for invasive species control. So I'm hoping, and I need to get back in there to convince my colleagues. I know I don't have to convince Senator Solomon, she understands, to vote up on this issue. So at this time, I would like to make the awards. First of all, a couple of honorable mentions for the Above and Beyond awards. Dr. Fern Duval, would you stand up? Dr. Duval is here. Dr. Duval is a DLNR Division of Forestry and Wildlife. We thank him for his work protecting Maui from invasive snakes, veiled chameleons, and other species. And how about Dr. Arnold Hara? Is he here? Thank you, Dr. Hara, with UH for his work protecting ag from pests such as leaf gall wasps, mealbugs, and scales affecting the horticultural trade. And finally, the recipient of the award, Scott Godwin. Scott, would you please join me up front? Scott Godwin works in resource protection for Papahanao Moku'akea Marine National Monument. He has provided assistance and expertise as Hawaii has begun to see the marine debris generated by the Japanese tsunami of 2011. In the U.S., over 150 alien species have been identified on Japan tsunami marine debris. Scott works in tandem with the state DLNR to find marine debris and identify invasive species. He also co-authored the State Response Guide to Alien Species on Japan tsunami marine debris, and because of Scott, there is now protocol and guidance for dealing with alien species in both the main and northwestern Hawaiian Islands, and a greater awareness of the potential alien species impacts of marine debris. So congratulations, Scott. Thank you for your work. Here you go. Oh, yeah. And also this. Thank you very much. And I think they want to take a picture. Whoops. Just hold it up and then... Judy, take a picture. You good? Did you get one? Okay.
Thank you so much, Senator Gabbard and Scott, for your work to protect Hawaii from invasive species. Our next award is going to be introduced by Senator Malama Solomon, who's here from the Big Island. She's the chair of the Water and Land Committee for the Senate in the State Legislature, and we're so thankful that she's able to join us this morning to deliver the Community Hero Award for 2013. Senator Solomon.
Aloha mai kako, aloha. It gives me great pleasure to present this award. I represent the districts of Hilo, Hamakua, Kohala, Waikoloa, and Kona. And these areas are known for their rugged landscapes, including lush forests, dry grasslands, and face a number of challenges, including koki frogs, little fire ants in Hilo and along the Hamakua coast. Invasive plants such as Myconia and the poison devil pepper, invasive fireweeds and ungulates that harm Hawaii's islands' agricultural industries. At the core of Hawaii's agriculture and horticultural industries, Hawaii Islands industries are committed to minimizing the risk of accidentally sharing invasive species with other islands. In addition to industry invasive species control, programs rely on community volunteers and organizations that are committed to obtaining support from the community. These people are community heroes. It gives me great pleasure to represent this particular award to a personal friend of mine, Mary Bejer, and the Hawaii Island Chamber of Commerce, who has demonstrated their commitment to both community-based stewardship of public lands on Mauna Kea, as well as to fulfilling pledges by the Chamber to support the University of Hawaii at Hilo in its efforts to implement existing management plans. Mary and the Chamber has helped the Office of Mauna Kea Management reach out to segments of the community which had not previously been engaged in invasive species control efforts, while at the same time providing feedback critical to designing a community volunteer program, which not only assists with invasive species control, but also promotes dialogue and understanding among volunteers. Short-term impacts from their efforts in 2012 include over 110 volunteer days, spending more than 800 volunteer hours, and pulling several hundred bags of weeds of invasive species from Mauna Kea. Their efforts will help restore native forests and provide habitat for the endangered palila. Mahalo nui loa for all of your wonderful work. Oh, yeah. Yeah. For you. Thank you. Yeah, would you care? Thank you.
I thought maybe they'd want us to hurry along. We just did another community day this past Saturday, and what was so surprising to me was to find that some of our volunteers were people who were born and raised on Hawaii Island who had never been to the mountain. She is such a beautiful lady. Anyone who ever goes to Mauna Kea always remembers the experience. So I would invite any of you who have not had that experience or possibly haven't had the experience recently, please come and see us. Please join us on our next community day. Maybe we'll even arrange a special one for all of you. Thank you very much.
Mahalo nui to Senator Solomon as well as Mary Bejer and the Hawaii Island Chamber of Commerce. Senator has to run back to caucus. They're very busy today, but I just want to mention the honorable mentions for the Community Hero category. They include Katie Castle with the Koke'e Resource Conservation Program. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are familiar with Katie, and I don't believe she's here today. Katie, are you in the audience? In spirit. But Katie has been a force in conservation on Kauai for 20 years, and with her time at KRCP, she's coordinated over 26,000 volunteers to do work in Koke'e, controlling invasive plants. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her a couple of times, and she's one of those people that just has so much energy and enthusiasm for what she does, that while running KRCP is her job, I get the impression that if they lost all funding tomorrow, she'd be out there working 60 hours a week anyway. So we did want to recognize her as an honorable mention for this award for her incredible work. The other honorable mention for the Community Hero category is Dr. Celia Smith. Not sure if she was able to join us today. She said she has a full teaching load at the University of Hawaii, where she's a professor in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. But she got the honorable mention for her nomination spoke to her enthusiasm for educating young people about marine algae in Hawaii. She not only does educational programs, she leads volunteer trips for cleaning up invasive algae around the state. And she really encourages people to pursue this as something that they do in their spare time, but also something for students to focus on in their studies and try to create that next generation of conservationists. So we did want to recognize her as an honorable mention for Community Hero and thank her for her efforts. For our next category, we have a Business Leader Award for 2013. And you'll see on your agenda that we were hoping Senator He would be able to join us to present this award. And again, with caucus today, everything's a bit chaotic in the state legislature, as usual. But we instead are going to have HISC co-chair and chairperson of the Department of Agriculture, Russell Kokobun, up here to present the Business Leader Award for 2013. Russell?
Thanks, Josh. Oh, great. Thank you. Aloha again. I guess Clayton's not here, but I'm a little short to represent Clayton. But I did serve with him in the state senate, and I'm sure he would have gone off had he been here. But notwithstanding that, I'm pleased to present the Business Leader Award for 2013. You know, it's important for businesses to get involved with invasive species, and I think it's a natural partnership. And in my opinion, some of the best work comes out of our business community with respect to the support that they give, the fact that many of the businesses and the companies actually are directly impacted by that. But let me just first mention the honorable mention nominees for the Business Leader of the Year Award. Kailua Surfboards and Kayaks was recognized for their contributions in staff time and equipment for invasive species removal projects in Kailua Bay, and including the offshore islands. And so is anyone here from the Kailua Surfboards and Kayaks? Thank you very, very much. Please extend to all the leaders in your business that we are very, very grateful for their good work. The other honorable mention was Whole Foods, and they were recognized for their proactive use of the Hawaii Weed Risk Assessment list to remove any invasive plants from their inventory, and for deciding not to import Christmas trees after talking to the Department of Agriculture about associated pests that hitchhike on imported trees. So is anyone here from Whole Foods? If not, let's give them a hand too. You know, the Christmas tree issue has really been growing over the years, the concerns about what's being brought in. And I think what that really leads to, though, is we got to grow our own. You know, the more we can do our own, the better we'll be at eliminating any of the pests that hitchhike in with that. And I know that there are projects that we are supporting on the Big Island in particular, just because of the elevation necessary to grow Christmas trees. But we are hopeful that this will prove to be more than just a research project, but actually get into some commercial scale development. Okay, so the winner this year of the Business Leader Award for 2013 is Young Brothers, and I'd like to ask Glenn Hong to come forward. Glenn is the president of Young Brothers Limited, which provides large-scale movement of cargo goods in the state. And you know, while cargo can be a vector for moving invasive species from island to island, Hawaii is fortunate to have Young Brothers as a proactive participant in ensuring that the risk of transporting invasive species is minimized. In 2012, Young Brothers continued to engage with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, ensuring that inspections occurred for the little fire ant. On Kauai, Young Brothers staff reported and assisted in the capture of a live mongoose near Nawiliwili Harbor, only the second live mongoose to ever be captured on that island. So incorporating environmental concerns into their business practices, Young Brothers provides an example of business and conservation practices working hand in hand. And if he looks young, he's really not. We're classmates from Pono. So he's the same age as I am, but always a pleasure. And by the way, Glenn, I'm really pleased that Glenn also serves as a member of the Board of Agriculture, has been serving for a year now, and is up for confirmation for a full 4-year term. And I think that perspective from the transportation community is so essential for the ag industry, but also for all his good work here at the, with respect to invasive species. So Glenn, congratulations. Welcome. This is the award and a Senate recognition. Sure. Oh, do you want to give them away, Jackie? Yeah, of course.
I just want to recognize some of the people that really represent Young Brothers and provide the leadership to all of our staff throughout the islands to be focused on recognizing situations where we can call Department of Ag or assistance in terms of whether we see situations where there may be invasive species in cargo that's being transported, whether it's in floral or potted plants, or whether it's in foodstuffs, or whether it's just coqui frogs hiding underneath cars. First, I'd like my staff to stand up that really provide that leadership. Nathan, stand up. Nami, Otomo, and then Roy Catalani and Matt Humphrey. Again, they provide the leadership to the staff and really focus themselves in recognizing those situations where we may need the technical assistance of Department of Ag or other agencies. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Thanks, Glenn.
Mahalo to Chair Kokubun and the staff from Young Brothers, including President Glenn Hong. Thank you so much. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, it's really nice working in the conservation field in Hawaii because people recognize that Hawaii's ecosystems are important and they need to be protected. So whereas in other states, you might think that some of your state agencies or businesses would be reluctant to join in conservation efforts or would need to be led. In Hawaii, you find that they actually have the initiative to do these things on their own because they recognize that Hawaii is so important. So thank you very much for all your work. I just want to touch on a couple of things. The Honorable Russell mentioned that Whole Foods uses the Hawaii Pacific Weed Risk Assessment, and for those who aren't familiar, that's the only system that we have in Hawaii for quantifying the potential for invasive species or incoming species to become invasive in our habitats. It's a really innovative program that was developed at the University of Hawaii, and to have that supported by the Invasive Species Council monetarily to keep people staffed at that group, and then to have businesses like Whole Foods use that to drive business practices and inventory is really fantastic. So we really, really appreciate that. I also wanted to mention how many nominations we got for the awards. This is the first year we've done this, and we had a 3-week nomination period where we put out a call for people in the conservation community to nominate individuals or businesses. And we received over 40 nominations for just 4 categories of awards, and then we have the associated county MVP awards that were selected by our island-based invasive species committees. So for individuals to send in 40 nominations for 4 spots is really a testament to not only how active the conservation community is here, but also how much we think of one another in this community. It's really a set of people that support one another and recognize good work when they see it. So we're ready to move on to the next award, which is the MVP for Kauai in 2013. As I mentioned, this award was coordinated by the Hawaii Invasive Species Committee. You'll be hearing a bit more about HISC later on, so I won't elaborate on them just yet, but they were essential in figuring out who on Kauai was the MVP for 2013 and helping protect that island from invasive species threats. So to present the award for Kauai MVP in 2013, we have Representative Dee Morikawa, who is representative from Kauai, for Waimea, Ni'ihau, Lehua, and we're just thankful to have her here today to introduce this award. Really appreciate your presence. So, Representative.
Good morning, good late morning, and aloha to you all. I represent District 16, which is the far west side of the nation. It is Waimea, Koloa, Ni'ihau, and Lehua. Now, these areas are some of the most remote in the main Hawaiian Islands, but are not isolated from the effects of invasive species. A population of koki frogs formerly existed in Lauai. Now, Lauai is in the middle of the island, pretty much. So that was a big problem. Beginning in 2006, the Hawaii Department of Ag and Hawaii Invasive Species Committee began an eradication project to control the frogs. So in 2012, Kauai was declared koki-free, so we hope. However, we cannot let our guard down because frogs still can come to the island in potted plants. My backyard, Kokei State Park, has magnificent ohia and koa forests, but is at risk from encroaching invasive plants like the Himalayan ginger, Clydemia, and the strawberry guava. On our little island of Lehua, which is of critical importance as a home to nesting seabirds, the National Tropical Botanical Garden has worked to restore native plants on the island, but it continues to be plagued by invasive rodents that threaten local birds and plant populations. Whether a project involves animal control, biocontrol, or pesticide use, the Hawaii Department of Ag is the primary state agency involved in helping control invasive species. There is only one resident Hawaii Department of Ag staff on Kauai, and I didn't know that at this time anyway, and he is Craig Kaneshige. So you can imagine the scope of his responsibilities. Where is Craig anyway? I don't see him. Hi, Craig. As he comes up here, I'll continue. Craig spends his efforts on a variety of invasive species, including insects and plants. He conducts surveys for invasive insects like nettle caterpillar, small hive beetle, varroa mite, and other agricultural pests. He collaborates with the Hawaii Ant Lab and Kauai Invasive Species Committees on little fire ant control and detection. Craig also is a dynamic member in the Kauai Conservation Alliance and actively interacts with many conservation groups on Kauai offering his experience and expertise. And I have personally seen him in attendance at many different functions all around the island. Thank you, Craig. Craig's work will help ease the impacts that invasive species have on agricultural and the biodiversity of Kauai's natural areas, perhaps even saving industries like honey production and endemic species that are already dealing with a host of pressures that threaten their survival. Because Kauai is known for its beauty and as a primary refuge for endangered seabirds, Craig's contributions to protecting Kauai from invasive species are critically important. Thank you, Craig, for all you do for Kauai and the state of Hawaii.
Mahalo, Rep. Morikawa and Craig, and thank you all for being patient while we take photos. That's the most important part of this part of conservation is documenting it so we can promote it on our websites and blogs afterwards, so thank you. Our next award is for the Oahu Most Valuable Player for 2013. And since Senator Nishihara is also wrapped up in caucus, we're going to have Councilmember Gary Gill from the Department of Health back up here to present this award. And I just want to recognize how important Oahu is in invasive species because it hosts not only the only urban center for the state, but also some of the major ports for harbors and airports. So this is where a lot of our invasive species show up first before they start spreading across the state. So this is a very important area to focus our efforts on for invasive species. With that, I'll turn it over to Gary Gill. Thank you.
So I get to impersonate a senator, Senator Nishihara, and I'm glad to be able to do this because he's been one of our most valuable members on the HISC. He definitely is committed. He shows up at all the meetings and is taking a real personal interest in this issue. So I'll do my best to represent him and thank him for all of his hard work. He represents the Waipahu area and is well aware of the need to preserve our fresh drinking water and guard the central Oahu area, which basically is on top of our most precious and important drinking water aquifer on Oahu. So let's see, there were a couple honorable mentions for the Oahu Most Valuable Player Award, and I'm not sure if they are here. Ms. Naomi Hoffman and Jocelyn Sand from Honolulu Botanical Gardens. If not, please thank them for their hard work. And, you know, we can't say enough about how important it is for our military to really pick up on this issue as well. And in many ways, on environmental management, we get back to Marine Corps Base Hawaii and their environmental program. Also an honorary mention. Anyone? In so many ways, the Marine base there out in Kaneohe has been a leader in environmental management. And so thank you for all your endeavors. But the most valuable player award goes to Mashuri Wait. Mashuri, I know you're here. Mashuri. Mashuri has I know for many years been involved in conservation issues out there in the forest, and we've taken a few hikes back in the age when I had hair, I remember, and but you haven't changed a bit. Working with the Oahu Early Detection Program to identify potentially harmful plants that should be removed, identifying and removing high-threat plants from the Lion Arboretum. Missouri's efforts have helped to stop the spread of these plants throughout the Ko'olaus, and collaborating with the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. I think they hosted a number of the meetings and the volunteer program to remove plants from Manoa Valley. And to date, over 63 acres of ground and almost 10,000 individual species have been removed. A lot of work, a lot of very important work to make sure that Oahu remains alien species and invasive species free. So please, thank you very much for your hard work. I see your footwear hasn't changed over the years. And I think you should say a few words. Oh, yeah, please do. Yeah, a few words. Come on. Oh, okay.
Wasn't prepared to say any words, but I thank everyone very much. And also, I was really encouraged hearing the governor's speech this morning and the energy we're getting from his cabinet as well. That I look forward to what's coming ahead. And again, thanks very much.
Great work.
Mahalo, Gary and Missouri. I just wanted to note that my first experience with working with invasive species in Hawaii a decade ago was at Lion Arboretum, cutting ginger. And it's a great place for someone to be introduced to Hawaii's beauty and also its issues with invasive species, since they're jammed together there in such a small area. So the work you do there is very important, and I'm really glad that you came down here today to be recognized, so thank you. Our next award is for the Maui MVP, and we were hoping that Senator English would be here to present. Unfortunately, we just heard from his staffer that he caught a late flight at the airport, so I think he's not going to be with us today. But Maui, as you know, is a county that really understands the conservation issues in Hawaii. And while it has its fair share of invasive species problems, including a dense core of Myconia on the Hana side of the island, and koki frogs that show up every now and then in nursery shipments, they do a fantastic job of recognizing why conservation is important and developing the Maui brand as something that really needs to be shown not only for tourism as an industry, but for the people who live there on the island and appreciate their ecosystems. So it's always wonderful to visit Maui and see the people who are doing work there, including the Maui Invasive Species Committee and some of our honorable mentions and award winners today. So I see that Senator English has actually made it, so thank you for coming here, even though your flight was late. We really appreciate it. So I won't take too much more of your time before I turn it over to the Senator. But again, just really wanted to thank the folks who are here from Maui today, and also say that as a county, one of the things that I wanted to mention about how Maui has this sort of sense of conservation is the county's willingness to contribute to conservation funding. It's the only county that contributes that magnitude of funding to their invasive species committee and to other conservation groups across the county that are working to protect not only from the threat of invasive species, but water resources and the Mauka areas that need to be fenced from invasive ungulates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Senator English, who represents Hana and Upland Maui, as well as Molokai and Lanai. And he's here to present the Maui MVP Award for 2013. Senator?
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you, and it's good to be here today. You know, it's our a very busy day for the senators, so we're coming in and out of a very big meeting. But let me first start by saying how proud we are to honor everybody today, and I'd like to, yes, thank you, begin with the honorable mentions. You know, we have some really great people on Maui, but let's start with Pat Biley, who's from the Nature Conservancies. Pat's here. We can ask him to stand. No, I don't see him. Okay. He's worked with the Nature Conservancy for over 22 years of service in controlling invasive ginger in Waikamoe on my side of the island in East Maui. So we wanted to give him an honorable mention, as well as Paul Miller, who is a resident of Haiku, for his active engagement in controlling koki frog. And you know, Maliko Gulch is the one area that we have a lot of koki, and we're trying to get that population way down and then eradicated. And as I'm getting older, I cannot, I don't know which key, either to keep my glasses on and be able to see you, or put it on and not be able to see this. Yes. Okay, so let me invite up Pete Flores. Is he here? Pete is the awardee from Maui, and he's the chief pilot for Windward Aviation on Maui, and he spent over 20 years flying in Hawaii and knows the challenges that we face. Congratulations. Let me just read all of this for you. You know, he works with conservation crews throughout the state, whether it's flying fencing material to protect watersheds on Maui, or help to stop Australian tree fern on Kauai. You know, I pull those out of my yard too. My grandmother planted them and I pulled them out. Pete has volunteered his time to come out on the ground with crews to see what it's like and how to help them from the air. So he has both perspectives, you know, and I understand that very well, because I've had to go up in the air and look at some areas and say, how on earth do they get in there, but the guys on the ground get there. You know that Pete is never on the clock. He's always on the lookout for invasive plants and animals. And he may spot, record, or even remember precise locations to return to later. And you know how important that is. I saw a Myconia plant, yes, but where? And he knows exactly where. In 2012, he helped Dr. James Leary to bring herbicide ballistic technology from the experimental phase to the fully operational phase. This new technology has the potential to dramatically alter aerial invasive plant control in Hawaii. And I have to say that I have shot that gun, and it's actually has some very, very good feelings to release. Especially when you name the target. Anyway. Pete, I'm very, very pleased to present you with this award. And why don't you come up on this side over here? We can do a photo. First is the award itself, and then a proclamation from the Senate. Turn your camera back. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I trust you with my life, Pete.
Thanks, Lori. Well, there are really no words, I guess. I have a different perspective, I think, from a lot of people. The governor was kind of talking about having the opportunity to educate people. I do have the opportunity to look at the state from a little bit different angle than the majority. I always think about the people on the ground and how much work they're doing. It's real easy for me to go, oh yeah, take this fence material up here. It's only 2 miles and 10,000 foot difference, and it's 30 seconds for me to fly up there, where it would take weeks for the people on the ground. the invasive species situation in the state, there's a little bit of an analogy that I'm not sure everybody really understands and uses. We do a lot of firefighting from the air, and it really needs to be handled as a fire. And those that are involved with firefighting need to realize that it's not just on the ground, it's not just in the air. It takes all the resources financially and the people on the ground, the foot pounders. You can't do it just one way. You got to be able to get it from all different sides. And you guys do a lot of really amazing things. And I personally feel very honored to have the opportunity to work with a lot of our customers because it's really an important thing. My kids are born and raised here. I've lived here 30 years. It's a major deal. And thank you. That's it.
You know, on a personal note, just let me just say thank you to all of you for your hard work. For my, 2014, my 14 years here at the Senate, I've always tried to get the best amount of funding, full funding for your programs, because I know how important this is in my district, but also to the health and well-being and vitality of our state. You know, this morning as I drove out of Hana, and before the sun came up, I was watching the MISS crews gather at their site in Hana, and I remembered how we started out over there with, very few people, no resources, and a lot of goodwill to make it happen. So that always gives me a good reminder that, we cannot skimp on the funding for these types of programs. And please be assured that many of us in the Senate, as well as the House, will continue to fight for full funding for your programs. Thank you.
Mahalo, Senator, and Pete, for your great work. I got a chance to talk to Pete before the ceremony, and he was sharing, what a blessing and a curse it is to be in the air so much and to be knowledgeable about invasive species in Hawaii, because he sees it firsthand on a daily basis in a way that few of us do. So thank you for your contributions. The next award is for Hawaii County MVP for 2013. And here to present that award, we have Senator Russell Ruderman. He represents Puna and Ka'u on Hawaii Island. And we're thankful to have him here on this very busy day for the State Legislature. Senator?
Aloha, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I do represent the District of Puna and Ka'u, an area that's known for its remote beauty, but also has a number of challenges, including our most recent one, axis deer, recently transported to Hawaii Island, invasive plants like Myconia and Albizia, coqui frogs, and now fire ants, our latest pleasure on the Big Island. Hawaii Island is home to a large number of farms and is the core of some of Hawaii's most productive agricultural industries, including coffee, honey production, locally grown vegetables, beef, and dairy. These industries are all threatened by invasive ungulates like axis deer, which browse on crops, break up soil with their hooves, and leave feces on the ground, making crops unsellable. Invasive plants also impact Hawaii's island's industry. For example, the invasive plant fireweed is toxic to livestock and harmful to Hawaii Island's ranches, beef, and dairy industries. We have two honorable mentions for Hawaii County MVP. Malama o Puna, headed by my longtime friend Renee Siracusa, for their efforts to remove red mangrove and other invasive species from Hawaii Island. They've also done a lot of work removing albizia from some of our state parks. And one of my heroes, Tim Tunison, from Volcano National Park area, for his organization of community groups like the Conquistadors, a group of volcano residents dedicated to finding and controlling the coqui frog. You guys who don't have the pleasure of listening to the coqui frogs over here, come over and visit the Windward site sometime and enjoy it with us. But our award goes to the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, who has been a critical partner in the development and release of a Madagascar moth as a biocontrol agent to control invasive fireweed. Could I have Tim Richards come up here? Alicia. Again, fireweed is toxic to livestock and spreading rapidly across Hawaii Island and Maui. Over a decade of study by the Hawaii Department of Agriculture went into ensuring that the moth from Madagascar would feed only on fireweed and not on other plants in Hawaii. The Hawaii Cattlemen's Council helped the biocontrol through the federal USDA approval process to be released as a biocontrol agent in early 2013. Now that the moth is being released, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council anticipate that the moth will slow the spread of fireweed, limiting its environmental and economic impacts on Hawaii's agricultural industries. And let me present this Senate certificate to Tim Richards from the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council and invite him to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Senator. Also, have to thank our governor and our Department of Ag. This has been a long road for us as trying to get this moth released. I think it started back in 1999. The bug was first found, and it's been going through the process ever since. Been a long time coming, and without question, if I understand correctly, Dr. Ramadan in the back, if I see him there, he found this, and this was the first bug that he found, and it's taken 13 years to bring it actually to where we are today. The cattle industry is ecstatic, to say the least, that we actually have something to go after it. To borrow a statement from the previous speaker, it is a fire, and it does spread like fire, and so to have any type of tool to work on it and push back, I mean, right now, there's estimated 800,000 acres of our state total, 4 million affected by this. Estimates are another million will be affected in the next 10 years if we don't do something. So again, thanks, Governor. Thank you, Department of Ag, and thanks everybody's support. Very important for the industry. Thank you.
And let me just take a moment to echo Senator English's words that I greatly appreciate the work done by the invasive species councils on each island, and the work done by DLNR and other agencies to control this. There's nothing more valuable to me than a native ecosystem, and they're precious and they're dwindling, and we should do everything in our power to preserve them. So all of you who do the actual work in the field, my hats are off to you, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mahalo.
All right, mahalo, Senator Ruderman, and to the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. I wanted to let you know that in addition to this being the first Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week, this is also the first event in Hawaii to run ahead of schedule. So we're working to get through the schedule as appropriately as we can, but we thank our legislators for being flexible today. I did want to recognize Senator Clarence Nishihara, who was able to join us from the caucus today. In addition to providing the Senate recognition certificates today, Senator Nishihara has been a longtime friend of the conservation community, and he's incredibly knowledgeable about the issues of invasive species in Hawaii. So I wanted to invite him up here to say a few words and reflect on his experience with invasives. Thank you, Senator.
Well, looking out is obviously, whatever I would say would be preaching to the choir. So, I was asked to at least maybe look at in the area where I represent, that's Waipahu, and I guess the area is going, including Pearl City. But, in the area of areas where I represent, that's actually statewide, the need for fresh drinking water, I think, is clearly, I think we all understand. And also, as a result of that, there's also the need to conserve what we have. So I just sat through a hearing that we had earlier with the, came before the Consumer Protection. And I think it covered about things as you might think not as important, but it's still important, is what we do with the gray water. And how do we recycle that? How do we process that? How we make it better usable for the agricultural areas and other areas that require water. And there's a lot of areas that in our neighborhoods that have ornamental plants, and some of these have become the reasons why the invasives have come into our state. And clearly, that's something we need to do more about. And I think we need to get maybe more support from perhaps the nursery industry in that area as well. But I noticed that the awardee, Mashuri Wait, was for the line arboretum. Would you kind of raise your hand? Okay. You know, years ago, and this is a little short aside, but years ago when I was, after I got out of the service, I re-entered the university after being initially told to stay out. Anyway, I had a job as a student hire to work up at the Lion Arboretum. And I found that tremendously instructive, because when you're up at the Lion Arboretum and you're up there in the, the forested areas of Manoa, you get to realize, number one, the importance of water, the importance of the canopy that provides for that, and also the invasives that are there growing up to today, and that's the albizia trees. And the reason I mention it is that I remember on one of our trips up into the valley, we would have to go in and collect samples for the National Institute of Health. And one of the things we had to collect was, things like ficuses and other stuff. But I remember one time we took a break and we sat down and we heard this tearing of things coming down from the canopy. And what it was is a huge albizia tree. The trunk, the branch was about at least that size around. And as it came down, it tore everything along its path going downward. And it's the first time I ever saw an albizia and ever got to know what it was. And it was really water-soaked and waterlogged. But it taught me a lesson about, ever since then, about why we should get rid of them in the watersheds, wherever we have them. And until this day, I still get calls from residents who say, I got this huge tree that's not really mine, but it's growing in some shared area that they want to get rid of, because they're afraid it's going to fall into their homes or whatever else, or injure themselves. And to that extent, I've called upon the civil defense people, and they've gone in, they've inspected. But the difficulty has been, and I think we need to somehow figure this out, is how do we get people who have these huge 100-foot trees hanging out there, overhanging their property, and we have no means of getting them to go and get rid of them, except with the owner's permission. And usually, in this case, the owners have to pay for it. So civil defense will go in, and if they make a recommendation, we should take it down. They may do it. I think they have some authority to do so, but then have to send the bill to the homeowner to do it. And I've got 2 cases already I'm trying to work through and figure out how we can do this. So I've considered talking to the insurance industry as well, who have homeowners and those kinds of insurances. That is an issue that I think we need all to look at the resources that are out there. And it may not just be governmental, but it may include insurance agencies, it might include the civil defense and others. How do we come together to remove some of these things clearly that have risks to human property and health? And I think, and those are the huge health risks we have in some of these things for invasives. And I really congratulate all the people who got awards for this, because it's such an important thing. And what I've noticed in the time I've been in the Senate is that how, although the public may think we have tremendous power, the answer is how limited our power really is. You know, we pass laws, in fact, we're discussing it right now, that we'll then have to hand it off to people like Gary here, who'll then have to make sense of what he's going to do with it. And then as these things go through, we kind of lose control of some of these because the intent is there, but the actual application is more difficult. And consequently, people in the Invasive Species Council have to deal with it as well. And it's always an issue about money and how do we do it. And I think we'd like to, and I'd like to continue to work with you to see how we can do something about these issues. But again, thank you again.
Mahalo, Senator Nishihara. We're at our last award of the day, which is the greatest hit of 2012. So we wanted to provide an award that would give a sense of what the most significant hit for 2012 was in terms of capturing an invasive species or making great progress in this field. We got a lot of nominations for this category, and so hopefully we'll talk a bit about the honorable mentions as well, since this was a really competitive one. But I think you'll understand why the awardee was selected. This is really an incredible achievement for 2012. To present this award, we have two representatives from the island of Kauai. We have Representative Kawakami and Representative Tokioka presenting the award for greatest hit of 2012. Representatives?
Hi, my name is Derek Kawakami, and this is Rep. Tokioka, and we are the lucky representatives from the beautiful island of Kauai. And before we recognize the award recipient, we would like to recognize the two honorable mentions in all of their hard work for the greatest hit of 2012. And the first honorable mention that we'd like to mention and acknowledge, and if we could ask them to please stand up, is the Pohakuloa Training Area Natural Reserve Office for their commitment to protecting native forests through fencing and removal of invasive plants on military lands. So if we have representatives from Pohakuloa, please let us know who you are. And secondly, we would like to recognize the Department of Transportation Highways Division for their development of the State Noxious Invasive Pest Program. So DOT, State DOT, please. You know, folks, the various invasive species committees are much more than folks who capture critters and eradicate invasive plants. They are much more than the front line of defense in protecting our watersheds and our overall environment. They are educators. They are advocates. And as many of my fellow elected officials know, they are relentless lobbyists. Almost as relentless as Myconia and mongoose. But we want to keep them around, not the mongoose or Myconia. As well as being folks who capture critters and eradicate invasive plants, and educators and advocates and lobbyists, they are unsung heroes. And it is with this deep honor that we have the privilege of singing the praises of our unsung heroes, singing the praises of our recipient at the 2012 Greatest Hit Award. And that award goes to the Hawaii Invasive Species Committee. Folks, how's about a round of applause? Can we have representatives of HISC make their way up so we can point out a few highlights? Come on up. The Hawaii Invasive Species Committee is a voluntary partnership of government, private, and nonprofit organizations working to prevent and control invasive species. While mongoose have been suspected on Kauai for several decades, no live mongoose had ever been captured. In May 2012, HISC staff captured the first ever live mongoose on Kauai near Lihue. On June 2012, they did it again, capturing a second live mongoose near Nawiliwili Harbor with assistance from Young Brothers. HISC, acting in cooperation with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Kauai Lagoons Marriott and others provided the first conclusive evidence of mongoose on Kauai, highlighting the need for further protection of Kauai's endangered seabird population. In 2012, HISC also declared Kauai koki-free, following the monitoring of a multi-year eradication effort of koki near Lauai. Give it up. In cooperation with the Hawaii Department of Agriculture, HISC's consistent efforts and stalwart collaborations paid off big time in 2012, making them an excellent recipient for Kauai's greatest hit of 2012. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rep. Kawakami. I had the pleasure, and thank you all for being here. I had the pleasure, I think it was about 8 or 10 years ago, Karen, when I was on the county council, and Rep. Kawakami was also a council member. He wasn't there at that time, but the Hawaii Invasive Species Council came to us, and many of you who are in this room today talked about the importance of funding the program on Kauai. Little did we know how much work they would do and what they would have achieved on Kauai. I had never heard of the koki frog at the time that we were funding the money, and I believe at that time it was 50 or 75,000 or a small amount like that for what you folks did, Karen. And I was so impressed. We actually went out to the area in Lauai that they were working, and we saw how hard they worked. Councilmember Kanashiro at that time had some good suggestions as far as how to catch koki frogs. He is still a rancher and a farmer in that area. And we just went out there and saw all of the work that you folks do, and I think now we are done, right, with koki frogs for now. On Kauai, let's knock on wood. So, you know, on behalf of, I know did Senator come down? Senator Kochi, he twisted his knee yesterday, so he wanted to be here as well, but I think he's still at the doctor right now. I think he's getting crutches. So he wanted to make sure that he thanked you, Karen, and your entire staff. Thank you all for all of the work that you do, because it's so important to us. Having heard the koki frog for the first time on the Big Island, we had already approved the money on Kauai, and I walked through the lobby at, I think it was the Naniloa Hotel, and I said, what the hell is that? I thought it was some kind of bird. And I said, that's the koki frog. And it was so loud, I couldn't believe it. And then we drove throughout the rest of the Big Island. And it's sad what happened on the Big Island with the koki frog. And I wish that people like you had been there to eradicate it there. But we thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, from all of the people on Kauai, because nobody should be subjected to that. And Karen, you and your group have worked so hard to that. And we thank you so much. Mahalo.
Thank you, everyone. I just want, the reason Joe Kona is here is because he's our field operations supervisor, and he really is in charge of everything that happens at HISC. And it's not just about me, it's about our whole group. And where we only started with 2 people, Craig Kanashigi with the Department of Ag was such a valuable partner. He really helped us get going. We were like the 3 musketeers, and as our staff grew, so did our partnerships and collaborations. And I think that we would not be standing here if we didn't have those partnerships and collaborations. And support from the county, too, has just been absolutely invaluable. So we really want to thank everything the county has given us so far. And yes, we're koki-free at our one infestation site. We're really proud of that. It only took about 10 years from introduction to eradication. But it shows that most of our invasive species are long-term targets. They're not just going to be a flash in the pan and we're done with it. It's, constant monitoring of the target and ensuring it's actually gone. And unfortunately, they still are coming. Thank you, Big Island. But it just shows the need for to really beef up our inter-island biosecurity, and we thank Young Brothers for what they're doing too, because we know that they've been invaluable partners too, especially with the mongoose capture on Kauai. So we just want to thank everybody, and the flexibility that we have being an RCUH project and also a project that's managed by Pacific Cooperative Studies Unit allows us the flexibility to often work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So anyway, thank you for this nomination and award.
supposed to.
Yeah, I didn't know the award was up here.
Yep, you get the plaque too.
Oh, come on back up. We gotta take a photo op. I'm sorry. With all the excitement, I forgot to present the award to you folks. And they had it written down for me, folks.
Mahalo to our Kauai representatives and the Hawaii Invasive Species Committee. I spoke earlier a little bit about how close-knit the conservation ohana is in Hawaii, and I just wanted to point out that the nomination for HISC to receive the Greatest Hit Award came from Craig Kaneshige, and the nomination for Craig Kaneshige to receive the Kauai MVP Award came from HISC. So we've reached the end of our HISC awards. I just want to thank everyone for sticking with us through our first ever Invasive Species Council Awards. This is really a great opportunity to thank you for all the great work that you do in this conservation community. For those of us who are joining us for the awardee lunch afterwards, there are directions to the Nature Conservancy office on the back table. There's a little map that'll show you how to get there, and we'll have lunch for you. I wanted to recognize our two remaining Invasive Species Council members. That's David Rodriguez from the Department of Transportation. David, if you could just stand up and wave. And also Gary Gill, who's the Deputy Director for Department of Health. He's going to come up here in a second and close. And I just wanted to invite the remaining award winners after Gary closes the ceremony to come down front, and we'll do one picture of everybody all together for the HISC website. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary. Mahalo, everybody.
You know, I'm not going to close. This is an opening. This is the beginning of the next phase of the work that we have to do. This is an opportunity for us to congratulate ourselves and recognize how far we've come, how much hard work we've done, and the difference that it has made. But it's a reminder to us that this is just the beginning. When I was a small kid walking through the mountains, learning about these issues, you know, as someone less than 10 years old, it seemed impossible. How could we ever stop strawberry guava? How could we ever stop the birds from spreading these seeds? How could we ever really preserve these watersheds that are so huge, so remote, so complex, so hard to get to? How could we ever get people to care, to put their lives into this work? And yet we've succeeded. We should congratulate ourselves on how far we have come. 10 years ago, who would have known that we would have an HISC on every island, in every county? Who would have known that the governor would stand up before us and lead the cheers in this cause? There's an old saying I remember from Gandhi, that everything that we do in life is insignificant. Everything that we do in life is insignificant, but it's very important that we do it. And this is important work that you have continued to do, that you spread to the next generation, so that 100 years from now, this auditorium will be too small to hold the celebration of the success that we have made. So keep it up. It's very important. Thank you. Mahalo.